You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma podcast. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today, but before we do, I've got to thank our sponsors. First of all, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've been a huge part of this podcast for the last few years. So the Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to OklahomaHOF on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is the Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. So a huge shout out to Governor Anatobi for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. Our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them. Do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is presented by Citizens Bank of Edmond. Citizens Bank of Edmond has been serving Edmond since 1901. They pride themselves on investing in the community and are here for all your personal and business banking needs. For more information, go to mycitizens.bank and follow them on Instagram at citizensedmond, as well as go bank there because I bank there too. It's been a fantastic personal experience for me. I've had my podcast account there now, my podcast business account there now for 4 years now, I think, and it's been fantastic. So definitely worth your time. They're a great group of people, and they're always there to answer the phone when I forget my password because I seem to forget it daily. So yeah, go to Citizens Edmond and check them out. It's been awesome. This episode is brought to you by the Dog House OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my two pups, and the Dog House have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. They've taken care of my two golden doodles, and so it's been an honor to partner with them on the podcast and share the love. And the one thing that I do with the sponsors that I have is stuff that I use and recommend, like the Diffies with my car, Hall of Fame. They're awesome. Citizens Banks, where I bank. Chickasaw Nation, huge supporter of Oklahoma. And adding to that is the Dog House. And so if you're in need of doggy daycare in the day or boarding overnight, they do grooming and other cool things too. But I've had a fantastic experience, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this with you too. So go to thedoghouseokc.com and follow them on Instagram at thedoghouseokc. And hopefully our pups will run into each other. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode in downtown Oklahoma City today. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you our guest, KaLeigh Long.
Hi.
KaLeigh, thanks so much for inviting me into your awesome office. Not very often do I get to do podcasts in a tower in downtown Oklahoma City, so this is a first, so I appreciate it. Appreciate the invite. Been nice to come in here and meet some of your awesome staff and hear some stories. Got little questions from the staff, which we'll throw in later. But Andy invited me to the conference a couple of weeks ago, your WestWin conference, and got a little bit of context about the business and the scale of the things that you're trying to do here. And it's very, very, I don't know what the right word for it is. I felt when I left there, I was like, I need to do more with my life. So whatever the right word for that is. But yeah, it's really cool to see what you're doing. And I know there's a backstory, which we're going to get into today. But let's go way back.
I actually moved around quite a bit as a kid.
Okay.
A lot of my childhood was in Oklahoma, though, but I was born in Raton, New Mexico.
Okay.
So I come from a long line of cowboys on my dad's side, and they've generationally managed a ranch called the Tio Ranch outside of Raton, New Mexico. And then I moved to the panhandle of Oklahoma, a very small town called Boise City, Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. And then towards 12, 13 years old, junior high years, moved to northeastern Oklahoma, a small town called Barnsdall, Oklahoma. Then high school was in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. That was my early Oklahoma footprint.
Yeah. Family okay with anyone still in Barnstable that got affected by the tragedy that just went by?
No, we did lose a really dear family friend though. It was really that tornado was tragic.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. It's awful. You said your dad's side's big into the ranching family, ranching side. Do you grow up kind of riding and wanting to be a part of that life?
Yeah, I definitely grew up around ranching. My dad was a pastor growing up, a Baptist pastor. I mean, yeah, he pastored until I think close when I graduated high school. But he also started a small cattle company. So I definitely grew up taking care of livestock.
Do you miss those days?
There are parts of it I truly miss. It was very hard work. So there are parts of it I don't think anyone would miss. But I definitely am more of a country girl at heart, for sure.
Do you attribute your work ethic to those values from being raised in the Western world?
Yes, very much so. My father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, extremely hard workers, very diligent, excellent, honest people, and how they can take their careers. So the cowboy way is it's a whole lifestyle. And yes, a critical piece of that lifestyle is not only you work, but your kids work. So I remember as a kid, maybe 8 years old, my grandpa was notorious for waking up at 2 o'clock, 2:30 in the morning and getting us kids up. Not too much longer after that to go saddle and gather cattle, brand. So I had days like that as a kid.
So dad's a pastor, has a cattle company, you travel around a lot. Mm-hmm. What do you want to be when you grow up? What's the dreams when you're a kid?
Oh, when I was a kid, I became a Christian at a very young age. And so as a kid, I love Jesus. I've loved him for a long time. And I don't think I had a specific thing I wanted to do. In fact, my specifics would often change. I was fascinated by a variety of subjects, but I often had an international interest as a very young age. And so, especially growing up with pastors' kids, and the missionaries would come through and show the pictures, whether it be from Africa or the Middle East or Asia, South America, that type of experience really interested me. And just the combination of wanting God's kingdom to go through every tribe, tongue, and nation all over the earth, that was a fascination of mine and a passion of mine. I don't think there was ever a day that I was consistent with what I wanted to do. I changed my mind a lot. So.
You have a huge passion for faith and seeing these people come around from all over the world. They're on mission trips and stuff. Mm-hmm. When's your first mission trip?
My first mission trip outside of the U.S. was in 2017, and I went by myself. So I had one of my best friends was from Iraq, and she connected me with pastor family. Actually, I probably shouldn't say their name because they're in a very dangerous place of the world right now. But they had a mission called Christ for the Crescent World, and they needed people who spoke English to come help teach in a school, a Syrian refugee school in Lebanon. And I got on a plane and I went by myself and connected with them. That was my first time officially doing foreign mission work.
What made you want to do that? What made you want to go solo as well to probably not the best part of the world to help and to be of service?
Well, I studied some Arabic. My undergraduate degree, I studied Middle Eastern history / specifically took a class on Islamic eschatology and how that motivates and fuels what we know today as like Islamic terrorism. So beyond that, growing up, I made really good friends with this Pakistani girl out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. I had a passion for witnessing to Muslims here in Oklahoma. And obviously a lot of Muslims come from the Middle East. So combination of that, my graduate studies, this fascination of Islam versus Christianity, the culture, a lot of Arab people that I met, I just fell in love with them. I love Arab women. They're so fun and hardworking, and there's a lot of passion to them. So, and just things lining up, getting the opportunity. I felt a lot of deep compassion for the Syrian refugees. I was tracking that war and saw a need and felt like maybe I could contribute towards it.
Yeah.
So, led me there. And I like adventure, so
Clearly.
why not?
Yeah.
Lebanon's amazing, by the way. So,
Yeah.
an incredible place.
Where's the deep love of history come from?
Why do I love history? I was put in a private school. My family sacrificed a lot. They were not a wealthy family, but they put me in a classical private school and when I was 13. And when you're classically educated, you're forced to ingest a lot of history. And I was convinced of the truth that in order to best pursue the present and the future, and correctly pursue that, you must learn from the past. And so I think the best way to look forward is to look backward.
First thing I just wrote down when saying that was history repeats itself. My next question was going to be how do you plan to take advantage of it repeating itself going forward? And so,
unfortunately and sadly, the reality behind the business case of WestWin Elements is counting on planning for future global conflict. And I think it was Thomas Jefferson one of the writers of the Federalist Papers. You saw this debate historically as they're trying to set up our republic. And a huge premise of that was if men were angels, then, we wouldn't need these separations of powers, but they're not. And so I think if there's one takeaway from history is that you got to count on humans being contentious, not angelic. Conflict to continue to emerge and arise, and I don't like that, but I don't think there's no level of sophistication that's going to undo human nature. With that, it's imperative within our country that we are independent, and while we should never be provocative towards global conflict, we are in a place where we can outstand it. That's a way that I think history will repeat itself, is war and more war.
unfortunately.
Yeah. Do not advocate for it. No. I have seen firsthand, real consequences of war. Few things worse than that in life.
Before we get to what's happening now and just kind of what you're doing, where does the entrepreneur side of you come from, and what was some of your first businesses?
Yeah. I think I inherited it. My dad is extremely entrepreneurial, and he, from a young age, was starting businesses. We have similar personalities. I remember being, 8, 10 years old in that small town in Boise City, Oklahoma, and I would knock doors in our neighborhood, and I would try to make something and sell it, go door to door, whatever craft it was. One time I got the neighbor kids and I put together we should create a musical together, and then we can create the show, and then we can go and sell tickets to the show. And I was a little kid. And thankfully, my mom was big on raising her kids in an environment that induced creativity. She homeschooled us at a young age. I have to thank my parents a lot for putting me in an environment that did not stifle creativity. So very grateful for that. So at a very young age, I was, and it's not like I needed the money. It was just, I don't know, the challenge. I don't know why I loved business at a young age, but I did. I was like the queen of lemonade stands, Beyond that, in high school, I got my first cattle loan with the USDA. I was working with my dad on that cattle company. In college, I was in college when I first started my advertising company, And we did a lot of, well, my brother now runs that company, but we do a lot of different types of mass-based communications. But something that we're known for is doors. So I think that company has knocked nearly 2 million targeted doors to this day. So it's not like you just go to a neighborhood and you knock door to door. This is, okay, we're assigned this region and these specific households. So a lot of door knocking that didn't get out of my system since I was very young. I love finding value in nearly every opportunity I'm in. So I'm in this position right now with this individual, and I like trying to find where is the value, where can I serve you, where can you serve the mission I'm working on. That just naturally continues to create opportunity upon opportunity. I used to flip houses. I started a subscription box meat company. My siblings bought a ranch. Again, trying to find that value, seeing that they weren't making enough money, but the packer was, oh, let's sell our own meat. I know how to build websites and do social media advertising. Just, I don't know why I'm an entrepreneur, but actually I do know why. It's because God made me that way. So, but I am that way.
Do we have a number on how many businesses you've started?
I would say that I have only had 3 successful business ventures. The amount of businesses that I, as a teenager, tried to start, and I would not deem them a success, I had a lot of ideas.
All the lessons are learned there,
A lot
though,
of
right?
attempts.
That's all the
Yeah,
lessons are learned.
yeah, absolutely.
Everyone sees the 3 successful ones, but
Yeah.
no one really talks about the maybe 20, 25, or however many others you
Yeah.
started that, like...
And a lot of money lost. I hope I'm done losing money, that's for sure. In the early days, I started things, I put my own money behind things that didn't work, so.
Where does that kind of unwavering belief come from?
I honestly think that good business people aren't optimistic or believing. Like, I think for you to succeed, you have to be very aware of where you fail. I started WestWin not because I was convinced that it would succeed. I did it because I was convinced that even if I failed, it was worth doing. In terms of the willingness to fail and the willingness to take the risk, I think that is less motivated by necessarily belief that you will succeed. I was so convinced to take that risk because if we don't take the risk, the consequences are so severe. And ultimately, in my personal life, I have a relationship with God, and if I feel like God wants me to do something, I'm going to work as hard as I think I should and leave the results to Him.
You can take a lot of power and strength in that, right? There's no doubt, because a lot of us think, what if I do this? What if I do that? One thing that people in the UK do very well is, what if I fail? Which is one of the reasons I love being here. Have you noticed that?
Oh my goodness, yes.
It irritates me so much.
This industry is very European.
Yeah.
So I've been spending time in London. Culturally, and especially from a business culture sense, it is extremely conservative, which I like to surround myself with those people because I can be a little too risky. So, but there's a reason that Europe hasn't fixed this problem, respectfully.
No, I totally agree with you. It's one of the reasons I love being here, because I've grown up in that mentality, and it's the opposite for me. Like, yeah. I was a lot more optimistic than most people back home, and I come out here and I'm like, not optimistic enough, right? Which kind of levels me up, which I love. And just the way that people, and maybe it's an Oklahoma thing too, the way that people here get behind you if you start a business, rather than like, back home, it's kind of like, well, what if that, I'm like, what if it works really well and I get to drive my dream car and play golf every day? Like, it's going to be fine. And if it doesn't work out, at least I tried, right? So to the point, you mentioned kind of WestWin a little bit. You mentioned 2017 was your first kind of overseas mission trip. Did you go overseas before then? on vacation or anything?
It was around that time I went to Australia.
Okay.
That was also a religious thing. My dad was preaching at conferences there to a lot of Romanians. So I felt like I was in Romania, but I was not. I was in Australia. I think that was the only other time. Yeah. Then after that, I started going overseas a lot, but then it became more work related.
When does WestWin start, and how does that come about?
WestWin's, so I had the idea in December 2021. WestWin was born in a very intense time in my life. So the story goes, in 2019, I was living in D.C., Northern Virginia. I had recently been married. Soon after I got married, I found I was going to be a mom. Along with the advertising company, I also had a lot of international projects that I was doing through that. So we did advertising in the U.S., but then we opened up a subsidiary, and we were starting to do things that I was really passionate about, like helping political opposition groups overseas. Is what got me involved with Congo, on how we could promote their efforts and their campaigns against bad guys.
Yeah.
But when I found I was going to be a mom, I decided, you know what, I can't keep doing that job. I also knew I wanted to raise my kids in Oklahoma, or not in a city. So ended up moving back to Oklahoma. Most of my adult life, I was based out of D.C., Northern Virginia. Came to Oklahoma, moved the advertising company here, really started stepping away from anything international, just focused on domestic clients. Bought a farm, everything was going here, but you know, there was definitely a part of me that was compelled or felt like my work was really unfinished, specifically with Congo. I was also supporting a group of political activists who were in opposition to Maduro in Venezuela, and we were trying to support Guaido. I was so disappointed because he ended up betraying the opposition. So came back to Oklahoma, thrilled about being a mother, but also that haunted me. Like, I had this vision where we wanted to make so much change overseas, but spent so much effort with little to nothing to show for it. In terms of actual change. So came back to Oklahoma, had the advertising company going, it was going well, got around the ranchers again. That's when I decided to start the subscription box meat company. I really like being involved in my community, a small town in Bartlesville. That's when I was like, oh, I'll flip some houses, just, you know, and I was getting to be more in mom mode and very excited about that. Soon after I had my first daughter, I was pregnant with my son. I love kids. Soon after I had my son, I found myself that I was going to end up having to get divorced. And I had a newborn and a 13-month-old. Not what I wanted for me or for them, wasn't in the plans. And so it was a very hard time in my life, in my kid's life. And I started to really think about what I needed to do. And I decided, you know, I'm not going to put this energy into extensive grief. I want to get up. I want to move. And ultimately, I was just like, God, I want to do what you tell me to do. Like, how do I use this pain correctly in this energy? And advertising was advancing, and went to work, was doing that. And I had that mom mode, but then I had another mode that arose. And I think anybody who's become a single parent will relate to this, but you become almost mother and father. And I felt alone. I felt this overwhelming responsibility of, okay, it is on me and on God to create, to provide for my children and to set them up generationally, which then inspired all of the business entrepreneurship sense in me that I could probably muster. So I was going to work, trying to grow the advertising company, and I didn't want to sit around and pout. So I might have been in a place where I could work longer hours than I would if I were more comfortable in life. And so I worked hard. And I had a client, and I was in Mar-a-Lago, and we were fundraising for this client. And there was a politician that I had known for many, many years. And he said, "Oh, there's the Cobalt girl." So the reason that he knew me as a Cobalt girl is when I was in D.C. in Northern Virginia, I was working with the Congolese political opposition. We branded the opposition campaign around critical minerals. And so being that in grad school, I studied critical minerals in terms of national security in Congo, in the political space, people recognized me as an association with critical minerals, specifically cobalt. And, I was there and right place at the right time. He said, "You need to meet this guy," he was a part of companies founded by Tom Albanese, where they were going to start extracting polymetallic nodules from the seabed floor, which were rich in cobalt, manganese, nickel. He said, "Yeah, you should really get together with her. You should work with her firm. She could really promote your company, fundraise, all these things." And I think he's the first one to ask, but he said, and I said, "Oh, this is amazing." He said, "Yeah, it's going to be an American solution. We'll finally have a source outside of China. It's a source outside of Congo." And I think he asked the question, "Where are you going to refine it?" There wasn't an answer for that. And that question was like on a loop in my brain. Where are you going to refine it? Where are you going to refine it? Where are you going to refine it? And I started just digging and making calls where I could. And the truth was revealed to me that there is not a single refinery in the United States, major refinery for cobalt, nickel, manganese, many of these critical minerals. I realized that if that were the case, we could have it truly is the bottleneck for our dependence on China and Russia for these materials, the refining piece. And it's the reason why Americans don't show up in Congo, Tanzania, Indonesia, because even if we did show up and we bought the material and we partnered with the mines there, then it still goes back to China. Everything came full circle to me. I was in a place in my life where I was really motivated to build something. I was a mama bear that roared and was like, "I am a single mom, was not planning this, got a newborn 13-month-old. I want to build something for them. And I still also want to, I would love if I could do something to support them generationally. And I could also bring a solution to all these really sad places that I had seen in Congo. And serve the country that I love very much by addressing and solving a major national security issue." That is something that really motivated me. So the stars aligned, I would say. That's why I started WestWin. And when I started it, I went all in. So I sold nearly everything I could sell. I took almost all of my operating capital in my advertising company. I remember I walked in to our offices at the advertising company, and I sat down with the staff, and I was like, "So, do you guys know what cobalt is?" And this is just so not our industry or lane, and they were just kind of taken back. And I was just like, "We're going to do a pretty big pivot, and if you want to stay, but I am changing course here." And I went all in, and I hired a team for it, and started running, and I have ran I haven't hardly stopped running in 2.5 years. So
That's what it's going to take, though, right?
I think so.
I think so. I think you're going to be fine. Why did you study minerals in grad school? What took you there?
I got a scholarship. I was recruited to go to a school called Institute of World Politics. It's a national security intel school. So the whole school is based around issues that impact national security or geopolitical dynamics, and critical minerals is just it's a priority issue for anybody managing those issues.
Yeah.
Because I had such a passion for the Congolese opposition, I wanted to focus my directed studies, pick classes that would let me focus on Congo. Well, if you're going to focus on Congo and it's going to have any nexus with national security, you got to talk about coltan and cobalt and uranium and lithium and now nickel. Congo's got a lot of, well, it's projecting that they may have a lot of nickel.
Yeah. You're very passionate about the Congolese. Where does that come from? Where's the passion for the Congolese comes from? Because I know that plays a huge role in everything that you do.
I wish the reality of where the origins behind WestWin came, behind myself came, behind the Congo came, were more glamorous than they are. But the reality is, I fell in love with Congo and the Congolese mission from an introduction in a powder room. So I was speaking at a conference with the Leadership Institute, and I was giving a presentation, I think, on leadership and campaigning, these kind of things. And I went to the restroom, and there was a lady that came up, and we started talking. I think I commented, "Hey, I really like your dress." Started talking. She was from the Congo. She was on political asylum from the Congo. She did some political activism there. She was a distinguished lawyer from Congo. She had even been able to, I think the term would be litigate or present before the International Criminal Court. She told me the Congolese story and why she was taking that training and why there were so many young people and other people in Congo that were wanting to drill up leadership, being able to run efficient campaigns so that they could work towards healing in their country. They had an awful dictator who had been in power for many, many years, Joseph Kabila. And she told me that story, and I was very compelled by it. Yeah, in fact, in the story was even more compelling. All of her younger brothers were killed in eastern Congo by the M23 militia. Her father was. And just that level of tyranny, I think there's something that God put in me from a very young age that I want to be used by Him to advance His kingdom, which is truth, beauty, and goodness. And when you see parts of this world that are under so much oppression and so much tyranny and harm, there's just, like, God put that in me, like, oh my gosh, I want to combat that. You know, I think every Christian and non-Christians should do this too, but we have a calling to push back darkness, to press evil, or to press evil away with good. And so I was just so compelled by her story, and then I started helping her, volunteering with her, meeting several other Congolese opposition leaders. And at that time, I went all in to trying to help them.
Putting the pieces together, you have that experience, you go to school for minerals, and then you kind of have that moment at Mar-a-Lago, and then you can't get out of your head. Mm-hmm. And obviously, to everything you've spoken about, you're kind of growing up the cowboy way, working hard. Faith is a huge, part of your life, as well as being an entrepreneur and always wanting to add value and see where that value is and bring that value to people. All of this comes to this giant kind of pie, if you will, and then you get that moment at Mar-a-Lago and you're like, this is what I'm going to do now. And you flip the advertising agency into, we're going after nickel mode, and that's how WestWin seems to arrive, right? And we're 2 or 3 years later now, you have an office in Oklahoma City and their factory that's in the process of being built down in Lawton. Mm-hmm. Take me from those last 2 years to now. Which you don't have to take me in full detail because that's a lot of time. But why Lawton? How does that come about? How do you start building out a business, a board? Like you said, you've been running ever since. And so I'm very interested into, obviously you spoke about Oklahoma being your home and wanting to raise your kids here, and having a business here as well is clearly on that list as well, especially one that's impacting the world and is going to be not just Oklahoma, but America's only refinery.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I love Oklahoma. I wanted to do it here. I didn't want to have to leave here. I also felt safe here, and so I wanted to be in a place where we would be held accountable to do things cleanly, ethically, but where the permitting process and the regulatory process wasn't overly bureaucratic and delayed, where we would be given the opportunity to be due diligence, but in a timely fashion and a reliable fashion, and not be in a state where we got in the middle of some sort of political infighting that could somehow hurt our business. So this state has been consistent. It's historically been an energy state. It's a state that has a large footprint of renewable power, and that was proven. We got our permits for a pilot plant in about 3 months. So how the business got from the idea about 2.5 years ago to where we're at now, and that's, we're about to be making nickel powder, weeks from now, is all glory be to God. There was a lot of the right place at the right time, and there, to your point, that something unique, I think, is unique about America, and I'm so grateful for, is a culture of entrepreneurship and in small business. We could not be where we're at today if people who are much more experienced, much wiser, much older than myself did not join the team and take that risk to join the team. So God just put me in a place to where I happened on the right person, and somehow those people joined, often with my jaw dropped. So, I think, like Jesus said often, you have not because you ask not. I think people could accomplish a lot more than that they think they're capable of if they weren't too scared to just ask and to make the pitch. But I wanted to start with the technology. I knew that if we didn't have the right widget, if we didn't have the right technology, if we didn't have the best technology, then the business case probably wasn't there. And I knew to find the right technology, you had to find the people that had proven it. So I knew we didn't have the luxury of trying to invent things. This industry and trying to come to the United States, I think overall is failing because we're trying to invent things when we have nothing here to begin with. Mm-hmm. So I also think it's important, if you want to be a really good entrepreneur, business creator, that you're not greedy. And so if your end goal is to make money, I don't think you'll reach that goal. By the way, it's not worth working as hard as you do to make the money. I would much rather have the time. And so the way that I think we were able to recruit the talent and the expertise that we did is I pitched it as, will you be my business partner? You can own a piece of what you have dedicated your life to for once, and you can lead in areas that you've never been allowed to lead fully. And that was a very attractive selling piece. Yeah. So I think we're here because we got the right people here.
Yeah, having a great team around you is probably one of the, if not the most important thing, right? Especially, like you said, if you go out, there is the opportunity here to make a lot of money, right? Mm-hmm. But if you just focus on that, you're going to miss out on, like you said, doing things for the good of people, others, whatever it is. Like, there's so many businesses out there that cut corners because they want to save $5 on each product, which turns out to be a lot of zeros, but at the end of the day, maybe they're not around anymore. And when you're doing something to this scale, when you're talking globally, like, you need a team, right? And I commend you for staying in Oklahoma, because you could easily go somewhere else. And I'm sure part of the team, you had a guy move down here from Canada. Like, you've got a guy in Wales, which is awesome. You could be in a lot more glamorous places than Oklahoma. We know how good this place is. Yeah, they don't, right? Like, it's such a hard sell to some people. You're like, hey, I will give you a piece of my company, but you have to move to Oklahoma. They might be like, yeah, but it's Oklahoma. You're like, I just said I'd give you a piece of this company, I was at the conference and just kind of sitting there taking it all in and hearing, the guys speak and the girls speak about just, KaLeigh got up and spoke about you, and just the person. I think TW did the same thing too, right? And it's when you focus on the person and the team around you, rather than, obviously they're going to have great skills, but when they're great human beings as well, you guys can do amazing things. And KaLeigh's been around a lot of good and bad people. TW as well, both been on the podcast and spoke about, doing great things, but they both love Oklahoma, and clearly you do too. And, that's a huge driving force. Talking a little bit more back about the business, for people listening, what is the refinery, just to give them some context?
Mm-hmm. We're building the first major nickel refinery in the United States. So we take intermediate nickel products. Right now, all of our feed comes from Turkey. We'll likely be importing also from Indonesia, maybe Congo, maybe Guatemala, maybe Australia, maybe New Caledonia. And we take that material and then we produce a very high purity nickel, and we can customize the morphology of that. The end uses can be for aerospace and defense technologies, fighter jets, missiles, ammunitions, but also for lithium-ion batteries, which are mostly used in electric vehicles. The refinery, we're using what's called the carbonyl process, and it's by far the cleanest process to refine these materials. It's a closed-loop system. To get to the metal point, we have no solid or liquid waste streams. The concept is pretty simple and basic. Now, implementing it is quite complex, but that's the short story of it.
Again, just to remind people how important this is and why, it's so important to have the first one in the U.S. You mentioned kind of China a little bit, obviously Russia as well. Canada has 2, is that right? We get a lot from Canada right now, but most of the nickel in the world is going to China or Russia. Mm-hmm. And obviously when you talk about the issues that we have with the world, people being bad people, kind of, there's a point there where you could easily get cut off and we'd be without it. And if the world is going to be electrified, we don't have any batteries going in our electric vehicles, right? So there's a huge issue.
We have been cut off. So China banned exports of germanium and gallium, which is grossly affecting aerospace and defense right now. Now they recently banned graphite, which is anode material in a lithium-ion battery. About 2 years ago, we had to stop deliveries of F-35 fighter jets, the Pentagon did, because there were cobalt samarium magnets that we could only source out of China. So we have already felt consequences of this. China has sanctioned in one, not uniformly, but a type of sanction on, I think it's Lockheed, Northrop, Boeing, I think Raytheon has. So yes, they can, and they have, and they likely will continue to do so at even greater consequence.
Yeah. Have you thought about what happens when this is all done? What are you going to do?
We have already started. I think it's called the WestWin DRC Foundation. I mean, as a Christian, me personally, where my passion is I want the kingdom of God to go throughout the ends of the earth. And where the kingdom of God goes, truth, beauty, and goodness goes. So that's a personal motivation of mine. From a business point of view, after we build this refinery, if the market allows, we will build another one. We've been debating whether we will expand the business to expand products downstream or upstream. Upstream is the fun part of the business. That's where we get to go hunt for mines and put our Indiana Jones hats on, and there's so much adventure to be had there.
Chase the crystal skull.
There's all sorts of excitement about the polymetallic nodules or recycling, getting end-of-life batteries. So critical mineral space is certainly one that I think will take an individual from one part of the earth to the other part. Mm-hmm. So there isn't a continent that doesn't have a role to play in this material. So we'll see. I do avoid thinking about what happens if it works intentionally. I try to think about where does this business fail and how do I keep it from failing.
Is that what keeps you up at night?
I think being kept up at night is a sin. So I try not to. So I try to work really hard. It is what causes me to work really hard during the day. The Bible says he grants sleep to those he loves. And in vain you labor at night. So I try to trust God while I sleep. And trust him when I wake up. But part of that trusting is obeying and working to the best of my ability.
I think you're doing a pretty good job of it.
Thank you.
From what I can see anyway, in the short amount of time I've been around you and seeing it, I think you have the energy that it rubs off on people and energizes others. You're just turned 29 and you've lived 4 lifetimes at least by now. The work that you're doing around the world is incredible, not just in Oklahoma. And one successful company is great, but you've had three at the age of 29, which again is amazing. And I'm not that much older than you, but it's great to see someone that's relatively close to being age kicking ass around the world, right? It doesn't usually happen, but also in an industry where there probably isn't that many women around, and I'm sure you probably see that a lot too, right? And I think it comes back to probably the grit of growing up the way you did, right? Western values, again, I keep coming back to that, but it's true. The cowboy way is a great way of life, and there's respect, and the handshake business. Sadly, handshake business doesn't get you very many places around the world because, as you mentioned, people are evil.
Yeah.
But no,
count on human nature.
Yeah.
And you'll get screwed a little less.
But there was one last thing I need to ask because, okay, so we're sat here, whatever the day is, June. Is it June yet? No, it's not June. When this goes out, it'll be June 2024. I'm sure opportunity is a word that comes around all of the time. And it's clearly something that you're very good at seeing through your career and the things that you chased after. What's the opportunity for other people to be around you, to be around WestWin, to learn, to maybe invest? I mean, what does opportunity come around in the WestWin world right now?
Well, for other everyday Oklahomans, we've raised, I think it's close to 55 million so far. I think we have 1.2 million left to sell in our bridge round. It's a really good investment opportunity. It's largely been de-risked now, so we've already funded seed, we've already funded Series A, we closed 20 million Series A. We actually have a demonstration refinery, an asset that is soon to commission. Oklahomans, please drive to Lawton, Comanche County Industrial Park. You can go drive around it and see the many workers out there working aggressively to make that thing work in a reality. So for other Oklahomans, it's a huge opportunity and could potentially be the last opportunity for accredited individuals to participate as a co-owner and partner in WestWin at our valuation where it's at today. And so we do anticipate likely that our Series B will only be eligible for institutions. So like the minimum investment Series B will probably be 10, maybe even 15 million. So you could go on our website if you want to be one of the very last accredited individual investors. I think so far we have around 140 individuals so far. So that is one of the opportunities that I would encourage other Oklahomans to join in.
What's the minimum investment for an individual?
$50,000.
Okay.
In this round.
Yeah. Last chance.
Yeah, last chance.
Get in while it's hot, people. All right, fun question from Stanley, who seems like you've known for a long time growing up.
I have.
Stanley asked me to tell you or ask you about the Marlboro Man. So let's finish with something fun. Who is the Marlboro Man in your life?
Well, again, I come from a long line of cowboys. So my great-grandpa was Clarence Haley Long, C.H. Long. He's got that famous picture, the cover of Life magazine. And from my understanding, he was offered to be the official Marlboro Man. When people see his picture, they often say, oh, that's the Marlboro Man. But how I've been told the story is that he actually ended up declining the contract because even though he smoked, he didn't want to encourage other people to smoke, and that was back in the day. And I heard that he, too, wanted to become a pastor and just didn't want that to be his personal brand. But it ended up, if you Google him, he's got those famous cowboy pictures all over Life magazine, and he became this, cowboy phenomenon throughout the country for a while. So that I didn't know Stanley knew that, but that's kind of cool.
It's a pretty awesome piece of family history right there. KaLeigh, thanks so much for your time. I know you're extremely busy. It's been a pleasure to sit with you and hear you chat, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people inspired by this story, and I will link the website, westwinelements.com, to the show notes below, and keep kicking ass, and we'll see you at the ribbon cutting in August. So thank you so much, and people listening, we'll catch you next episode. Cheers.
Yes, thank you so much.
Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com And follow them on Instagram for daily updates at Oklahoma HOF. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln.
This episode is presented by Citizens Bank of Edmond. Citizens Bank of Edmond has been serving Edmond since 1901. They pride themselves on investing in the community and are here for all your personal and business banking needs. For more information, go to mycitizens.bank and follow them on Instagram at citizensedmond, as well as go bank there, because I bank there too. It's been a fantastic personal experience for me. I've had my podcast account there now, my podcast business account there now for 4 years now, I think, and it's been fantastic. So definitely worth your time. They're a great group of people, and they're always there to answer the phone when I forget my password, because I seem to forget it daily. So yeah, go to Citizens Edmond and check them out. It's been awesome.
This episode is brought to you by the Dog House OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my 2 pups, and the Dog House have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. They've taken care of my 2 golden doodles, and so it's been an honor to partner with them on the podcast and share the love. And the one thing that I do with the sponsors that I have is stuff that I use and recommend, like the Diffies with my car, Hall of Fame. They're awesome. Citizens Banks, where I bank. Chickasaw Nation, huge supporter of Oklahoma. And adding to that is the Dog House. And so if you're in need of doggy daycare in the day or boarding overnight, they do grooming and other cool things too. But I've had a fantastic experience, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this with you too. So go to thedogHouseOKC.com and follow them on Instagram at thedogHouseOKC. And hopefully our pups will run into each other.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.